A young, handsome man named Dave walked into a company for an interview. But when he sat down, he was shocked beyond words. The person sitting across from him, the woman who would interview him, was his late wife, Rose. He froze. His lips trembled. "Rose," he called out in disbelief. But she looked at him coldly and said, "Excuse me, do I know you?" Dave's voice shook. This is my wife. She died 5 years ago. We buried her with our own hands. What is going on here? Do you believe the dead can return and continue life elsewhere? If you were the man, would you run away or sit down for the interview? And if you were the woman, would you pretend not to know him or disappear? In this video, you will discover what truly happened to this man and to his wife. Medium dark skin tone and pointing right, but before we continue, don't forget to like, share, and subscribe to African Tales by Moonlight, where every story touches the soul and opens your eyes. Now, let's continue. Dave and Rose were once the picture of happiness. Dave was the CEO of a powerful oil and gas company. Rose, his wife, was a bank manager. Together, they were wealthy, respected, and deeply admired. Their daughter, Joy, was already in primary school, full of laughter and innocence. Their home was filled with smiles, gifts, and celebrations. Dave never forgot to support his in-laws. He always sent food and money to Rose's mother in the village. Neighbors whispered that Rose was lucky. Her life was like a dream. Every evening, Joy would rush into her father's arms, shouting, "Daddy is home." He would lift her high in the air as Rose stood watching, smiling. Their life looked unshakable, perfect, complete. But sometimes, storms come without warning. One morning, Dave received a call that tore his world apart. He was suddenly sacked from his company. No reason, no explanation. His dream life had just begun to crumble. If you lost everything in a single day, how would you face your family? With silence or with tears? The day Dave lost his job, he walked home like a man carrying the weight of the world. His fine suit felt heavy on his body, and his shoes dragged across the ground. When he opened the door, little Joy ran to him, smiling. "Daddy, you are back," she shouted. He forced a smile, carried her in his arms, and kissed her forehead. But inside, his heart was breaking. Rose noticed his pale face. "What happened, my husband?" she asked, fear in her voice. Dave dropped his bag on the chair and covered his face with his hands. "They sacked me, Rose, just like that. I begged, but they refused to listen." Rose froze, her heart racing. She touched his shoulder gently. "Don't cry, my love. We will survive this. You are strong. We still have each other." But the words felt weak. That night, Dave could not sleep. He stared at the ceiling, wondering how to tell his daughter why he no longer had a job. The walls of their big house felt like a prison. The next morning, thinking things couldn't get worse, he went to check his shop, his only backup. But when he arrived, he stopped in shock. The shop was on fire. If life kept taking everything from you, piece by piece, would you still fight, or would you give up? The smoke rose high into the sky. People were shouting, running with buckets of water, but the flames only grew wilder. Dave stood frozen, his hands on his head. "No, no, this cannot be happening," he cried. That shop was his last hope, the small business he thought would keep his family alive. Now, it was turning into ashes before his very eyes. He tried to rush forward, but a man held him back. "It's too late, sir. The fire is too much." Dave's legs gave way. His chest tightened. He could not breathe. Everything went dark. When he opened his eyes, he was in a hospital bed. A bandage covered his forehead, and his body felt weak. A stranger stood beside him, holding his phone. "I found this in your pocket," the man said kindly. "I called the number saved as my wife. She is on her way." Moments later, Rose rushed in, her eyes wide with fear. "Dave!" she cried, holding his hand. She paid the hospital bills without hesitation. For a moment, Dave felt comforted. Maybe she still loved him. Maybe they could fight through this storm together. But deep in her heart, something was beginning to change. Back home, things were no longer the same. Little Joy sometimes asked with innocent eyes, "Daddy, why don't you go to work anymore? Are you tired?" Dave forced a smile, stroking her hair. "Yes, my daughter. Daddy is just resting." But when she ran off to play, his face fell into silence. Inside, he was drowning. Bills piled on the table. School fees, food, electricity, everything fell on Rose. At first, she was patient. She encouraged him, saying, "You will rise again, my husband. Don't lose hope." But with time, her voice grew colder. She began to sigh loudly whenever Dave sat at home. She muttered sharp words under her breath. Soon, the muttering became insults. One evening, before Joy's eyes, Rose snapped, "Look at you, a man without work, sitting like a log. Do you expect me to carry this family on my back forever?" Dave's heart shattered. He said nothing, only lowered his head. Joy clung to him, confused. He still had one secret, 10 million in savings. Money he had kept aside, hoping to build a new future. But Rose's bitterness grew so heavy, even that secret began to feel like a curse. Dave's health began to fail. He often held his chest as sharp pains ran through him. Stress, hunger, and sorrow were eating him alive. One night, he collapsed on the floor. Rose screamed and rushed him to the hospital. Doctors worked quickly, then one of them came out, his face serious. "Your husband has suffered a heart attack. We need 4 million to start his treatment immediately." Rose gasped. She looked at Dave, weak on the bed. He could barely speak. With trembling hands, he reached for his checkbook. "Rose," he whispered, "here is my last strength, 10 million. Withdraw it. Pay the hospital. Use the rest for Joy's school fees. And if I die, start a business. Take care of her." His eyes watered as he placed the check in her hand. "Promise me, Rose. Don't let our daughter suffer." Rose nodded, tears running down her cheeks. She held his hand tightly, then left with the check. That night, Dave waited. Every sound in the corridor made him raise his head. Every knock made him hope it was her. But Rose never returned. The next morning, Dave struggled to open his eyes. His first thought was of Rose. Surely, she would walk in smiling, holding the money that would save his life. But hours passed. The doctor returned, frowning. "Sir, if your wife refuses to come with a deposit, we can no longer keep you here." Dave's heart sunk. He reached for his phone with shaking hands and dialed Rose's number. It was switched off. Panic spread through his chest. He called her mother in the village. "Mama, please, have you heard from Rose?" The old woman's voice trembled. "No, my son. For 3 days, I have not spoken to her. Is something wrong?" Dave dropped the phone, his eyes filling with tears. His heart felt like it was being crushed. As he sat hopeless, a young nurse approached. She had kind eyes and a gentle voice. "Sir, don't cry. You are not alone." She helped him pay part of the bills, so he could leave the hospital alive. But the silence from Rose remained like a knife in his chest. She had vanished. His wife, his partner, his world, gone without a word. Days turned into nights, and Rose never came back. Dave stayed at home with little Joy, trying to stay strong for her sake. But deep inside, he was breaking apart. Each time Joy asked, "Daddy, when will Mama come back?" his throat tightened, and he had no answer. Then, one early morning, his phone rang. He picked it up with trembling hands. A deep, strange voice spoke on the other end. "Your wife is dead." The line went dead before Dave could say a word. His chest tightened. His knees grew weak. He called again and again, but the number did not connect. In confusion, he traveled to Rose Village. When he arrived, wailing filled the air. Women cried loudly, and men stood with sad faces. One old woman stepped forward, her eyes red. "My son, your wife is gone. A stranger came here and said he saw her die in a car accident. Her body was burned beyond recognition." Dave's heart shattered into 1,000 pieces. He wanted to believe it was a lie, but the sorrow in their eyes was too real. A burial date was fixed. The day of the burial came. The whole village gathered, singing mournful songs, their voices heavy with sorrow. A plain coffin was laid in the middle of the compound. Dave stood there with his little daughter clutching his hand, both of them trembling. But something gnawed at his heart. He leaned close to one of the elders and whispered, "Where is her body? I want to see her before she is laid to rest." The elder shook his head slowly. "My son, her body was burned beyond recognition. It is better you remember her face the way it was." Dave's chest tightened. He wanted to scream. How could they bury an empty box and call it his wife? As the mourners wailed, the coffin was lowered into the ground. Dave felt a part of his soul being buried with it. Joy cried uncontrollably, calling, "Mama, don't go." Her small voice cut through everyone's heart. That night, after the crowd had left, Dave sat alone staring at the grave. His tears fell onto the earth. But deep inside, a voice whispered, "What if Rose is not dead? What if they are hiding something from you?" Weeks passed after the burial, but Dave's soul found no peace. Each night, he sat awake staring at the grave outside the window, his heart refusing to accept Rose's death. One stormy night, as thunder roared, Dave thought he heard a faint knock on his door. He froze. Joy was already asleep, so who could it be at that hour? Slowly, he stood up and opened the door. The compound was empty. Rain washed over the fresh grave, and the wind carried a strange whisper, "Dave." His body shook. He clutched the doorway, his breath shallow. The next morning, a neighbor approached him with uneasy eyes. "Brother Dave, forgive me, but I must tell you something. The night before your wife disappeared, I saw her entering a black car with a strange man. I thought maybe he was a relative. But after she vanished, I began to fear it was something else." Dave's world spun. A black car? A strange man? Was she truly dead, or had she run away? His hands trembled as he gripped the neighbor's shoulder. "Please, don't hide anything from me. Tell me everything you saw." The neighbor swallowed hard. "I saw her smiling, as if she wanted to go." Dave felt his chest crack open. Betrayal, doubt, grief, everything tore at him at once. Dave could not sleep after hearing the neighbor's words. His mind was torn apart, between love and betrayal, between hope and despair. The next day, he traveled back to the city, determined to search for answers. He began asking questions, following every whisper, every rumor. Some laughed at him, saying he was chasing a ghost. But others hinted that Rose had been seen, alive. One evening, while walking through a crowded street, Dave froze. His heart nearly stopped. Ahead of him, moving swiftly among the crowd, was a woman. Her walk, her hair, even the way she adjusted her wrapper, it was Rose. "Rose!" he cried, his voice breaking. The woman stopped. Slowly, she turned her face. For a brief second, their eyes met. Yes, it was her. But her eyes were cold, and beside her stood the same man in black. Before Dave could run forward, a car engine roared. The man pulled Rose inside, and within seconds, they disappeared into the night. Dave collapsed on the ground, his tears mixing with the dust. The truth stabbed deeper than death itself. His wife had not died. She had abandoned him, and their daughter. At that moment, Dave realized the cruelest pain is not losing someone to death, but losing them to choice. Now, I want to ask you, my dear listener, if you were in Dave's shoes, would you forgive Rose if she returned, begging for mercy? Or would you shut the door forever? Tell me what you think in the comments below. And please, if this story touched your heart, do well to like, share, and subscribe to African Tales by Moonlite, because every story here is more than just words. It is a mirror of life, a lesson for tomorrow, and a mystery that keeps you thinking long after it ends.